The lighthouse was still standing. The lamps were ready. The beds were disturbed. But the 3 men inside were gone. No bodies, no blood, no final message. Just an empty lighthouse on a rock in the middle of the Atlantic. In December 1900, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse became one of the darkest mysteries in maritime history. Far off the west coast of Scotland, on a lonely island called Alien Moor, 3 men were stationed to keep the light burning. James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. Their job was simple: keep the lighthouse alive. Because out there, in the black water and violent storms, that light was the only thing standing between ships and death. But one night, the light went out. On December 15, a passing ship noticed something was wrong. The lighthouse was dark, no warning beam, no signal, no sign of life, just a silent tower standing above the sea. Because of brutal weather, the relief vessel could not reach the island right away. For 11 days, the lighthouse stood alone. No one knew what was happening inside. No one knew if the men were alive, and no one could reach them. Then, on December 26th, the ship Hesperus finally arrived. The crew expected to see the lighthouse keepers waiting at the landing, but nobody came. The ship sounded its horn. No answer. They fired a rocket. Still nothing. The island did not respond. Then relief keeper Joseph Moore was sent ashore alone. He climbed the steep path toward the lighthouse, with the sea roaring below him. The wind was cutting across the rocks. The tower stood in front of him. Silent, no voices, no movement, no smoke, no footsteps. When he reached the station, the door was closed. That was the first strange thing. If the men had been taken by panic, why was the door closed? Moore stepped inside. The lighthouse was empty. But it did not look destroyed. That was the terrifying part. The lamps had been cleaned. The equipment was ready. The tower was still standing. But the keepers were gone. Their beds were disturbed. The clocks had stopped. The rooms were silent. It looked as if the men had left in a hurry and never came back. No bodies were found. No blood, no broken furniture, no final note, no clear sign of a fight. 3 experienced lighthouse keepers had vanished from a tiny island, surrounded by miles of freezing ocean. Outside, the search became even more disturbing. Near the west landing, investigators found strange damage. Ropes were scattered. Equipment had been thrown around. Iron railings were bent. Heavy objects had been moved by incredible force. It looked as if the sea had climbed the rocks and smashed into the island. The most accepted theory is simple and terrifying. A massive wave may have struck the west landing. Maybe 2 of the men went down to secure equipment during the storm. Maybe the 3rd saw them in danger and ran out to help. Then one wave took all 3. No warning, no escape, no bodies left behind. But that answer creates another question. Why would all 3 men leave the lighthouse? The rules were strict. 1 man was supposed to stay inside. The light was never supposed to be left unattended. Yet all 3 were gone. The tower was ready. The lamps were clean. The light could have burned. But the men had disappeared. And the island gave no proof. No bodies washed ashore. No final words were found. No witness saw the wave. No one heard a scream. Only the empty lighthouse remained. Over time, the story grew darker. Some spoke of madness. Some imagined murder. Others whispered that something strange had been on the island. But the real horror does not need a monster. 3 men were alone on a rock in the Atlantic. A storm came in. The light went out. And when help finally arrived, the lighthouse was still there. The rooms were still there. The lamps were still there. But the men were gone forever. Imagine standing inside that tower, the wind pushing against the walls, the sea crashing below, 3 beds behind you, all empty, a table left behind, a clock stopped, a door closed, and outside, nothing but black water. If the wave took them, it took everything. Their bodies, their voices, their final moments, their last chance to explain what happened. More than a century later, nobody knows exactly what happened at Flannan Isles. Maybe it was the sea. Maybe it was one terrible mistake. Maybe the answer was washed away before anyone arrived. But one thing is certain. On that island, 3 men vanished. The lighthouse kept standing, the ocean kept moving, and the sea never answered.